Hey guys, we're back. I'm Kens,
And I'm that nerd Allison.
and welcome to our
Spicy Book Nook.
So, in our last video, you kind of saw how we're going to start going through the Zodiac Academy world, and so you have a little bit of background on that. So this first book we're going to go through is the origins of an Academy bully.
Yeah.
So the way we're going to do this moving forward, I know we kind of already talked about it, but I just want to reiterate. We're going to be doing around 150 pages rounded up to the next chapter so that it's not like ending in a weird spot and you're in the middle of a huge war.
And in the middle of a chapter and you're like, this is page 150.
So we're doing about 150 pages at a time. This one is less than that, but it's a whole book. So we figured we'd
just stop at the whole book.
Yeah, we would just cover this for the first video. We're so excited to get into this. The Twisted Sisters are
amazing. Honestly, I love them.
I could almost categorize them as my favorite authors.
I
as
actually
of right now
would say that they are my favorite authors. Their writing and their world building are just...
Yes. So we are so excited to get into this. And first I'm going to start out with, this is point 5. It is a novella. It's before. So we've already kind of talked about Ruthless Boys, but I'm like, I love Lance already.
I don't want to give too much away.
Like, Lance is... I already liked him from Ruthless Boys. So going into this, it was cool to kind of see his, like, him kind of come out a little bit more, right? Because we're from his perspective. And then Darius. He was just a little shithead in Ruthless Boys.
Yeah, all of them. We met them briefly in Ruthless Boys, and they were just, like little
But
shits.
they got along with our, what are they called? Not quad. Quad is 4. What's 5?
For what?
For the Ruthless Boys couple. There's 5 of them. Anyway, they got along with our people.
Something, I don't know.
They got along with our people in Ruthless Boys, so we knew that they had to be shitheads,
Elise,
but good shitheads.
And Elise had a cousin.
Yep.
She found her cousin.
It's Seth, right?
No, Caleb.
Caleb. There you go.
Caleb
Seth is the werewolf.
Seth is the werewolf.
Seth is a werewolf.
Seth Capella.
Yeah. So Caleb is Elise's cousin from Ruthless Boys. So I don't know. It's just all cool how it's coming together already.
A little intro of them.
It definitely helped me get into it a little bit more because I was like, oh, this is just a continuation.
Yeah.
Like,
I definitely recommend reading
Ruthless Boys beforehand
because it kind of like gets you into the world without being like too overwhelming.
Yep.
And all of the characters of Ruthless Boys do end up doing cameos in the rest of the series later on. And so even just starting off with Caleb and the different heirs.
Okay, so let's get into it. Immediately, they're starting off with, so you're not supposed to awaken until you're 18.
Yeah.
Like, that's when your magic is supposed to come to you. That's when you're supposed to go to school. That's when you're supposed to start to learn how to use it. These celestial heirs, Cheater Peter Pumpkin Eaters,
entitled assholes, get their powers awakened early.
Which, how can they do that?
They make their own rules. There's literally the 4 of them in that little circle to get their powers awakened.
Like, that's how the book starts. And I'm just like,
that's so unfair. They have 4 extra, because Darius is 14 right now. They get 4 extra years
to learn how to control their powers
before they even go to school,
which puts them on top in the school. So the way it works is like your base kind of ranked on your power, like so how powerful you are and how good you can control your power. So immediately puts them at the top of all the leaderboards, which makes them look like the craziest, most powerful people.
Yeah, all of the training and...
Are they really?
What?
Like, are they really the craziest, most powerful people?
So
or
they
is
do
it only?
So they do each. It comes out that they each have two
elements.
So I highlighted them so we can go over them. So they have, so Max and Darius. So Max is the siren. And then Darius is the golden dragon. Both hold the power of water.
Yep.
Seth and Max, so the werewolf and then the siren again, have the gift of air. Caleb and Seth, so the vampire and werewolf, have earth. And then again, Caleb and Darius have fire. So they each have 2 different elements.
Which was cool to me.
They each don't have the same 2 elements. They each staggered.
It was cool to me that Darius got water and fire.
The 2 complete opposites.
Which is so like that's just living harmoniously inside his body, and I think
Mhm.
it's really cool, and I think that's going to come into play later.
Yeah.
Of him having two opposite
One of the things I did want to
elements.
point out, like, so they're all supposed to be, the four celestial heirs are supposed to be, even from like Ruthless Boys, are supposed to be evenly matched, and so that nobody has power over the other one. They're supposed to like rule equally,
Yep.
which kind of plays into like them each having two elements.
Yep.
But then there is this little note. Let me jump to it. Let me find the page. Okay, so page 11.
And she's reading the Kindle version.
The Kindle
I
version.
have
So around page 11. It's right after
hardcover.
their elements just got revealed. Lionel is not like super proud of Darius for having just two elements and being the same level as the other heirs.
Because Darius is like what, great grandfather or something like that. A
Mhm.
grandfather somewhere
Mhm.
had
Three.
control of 3 elements, and it really irritated me that he was like, if only
Well,
Xavier.
He's like, what? He says, "Oh well," keeping his voice level and light of our company. Perhaps your brother will be the one that harnesses the 3 then.
The rest of the families.
Fuck?
So I marked this one for sadness because it made my heart hurt really bad, because the rest of the families are all congratulating and loving on their kids and like, hey,
Not
yay,
Lionel.
so happy for you. And Lionel's in the back like glaring at his kid. Like he literally, what did it say? Father sighed just loud enough to let me know he was disappointed.
Yeah. Oh, Lionel's
was like,
an asshole.
Oh my goodness.
Abusive, like toxic.
And
asshole.
then not only that, so Seth is a werewolf, which
they're all like touchy-feely.
You learn a lot about the werewolf
Lovey-dovey.
culture in Ruthless Boys because one of the 4 boys came from a werewolf lineage. And it just, the way that his mom was like open arms, like
everybody's
trying to get him to come
excited.
love her.
Yeah.
And he was like, I know that my father will just be pissed off at me later, so I can't.
Yeah.
Like he was like,
even Caleb's mom, which is Elise's aunt, she kind of seemed like almost like a stuck-up bitch in Ruthless Boys, but like you kind of grew on her. Like political, yeah.
She's very political.
But she like loves her family.
She loves her brother, and she
so
loves her baby.
When even Caleb's mom, granted she's another celestial counselor, like she is one of the leaders of Solaria. And she was still happy for Caleb, and she was like crying and like super happy for him. I was like, poor Darius has nobody besides Xavier.
And Xavier loves him.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing throughout this book that you're kind of hinted at is he doesn't think Xavier's going to be a dragon.
Yeah, I have so many highlights. But he's skinnier because you even found out in Ruthless Boys, the dragons tend to be like big,
bulky.
And bulky.
I mean, Darius goes over it in here. He's like, you can pinpoint where the dragons are because even in their Fae form, they are extremely big and built.
Yeah.
So he's like, he doesn't think Xavier is going to be a dragon, and he doesn't know how his dad is going to deal with that.
He hasn't come out yet as a dragon, and
Which
normally
he's really
early.
frustrated about it as a little kid. He's 13.
13, so he's only a year behind Darius. And
Darius has had his form for a while.
Because he had just found out his dragon form in Ruthless Boys.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
And then this is also where Caleb becomes a vampire because his powers are awakened. So that's the thing with vampires is they normally don't show their order forms until they get their powers awakened.
Yep.
So he is now a vampire at 14.
Insane how they just
they're just like, here
pull
you go.
the magic to them, allowing them to do it so much earlier. It's Cheater Peter Pumpkin Eaters.
Yeah.
So the next kind of thing that I have in here is when Clara came to the game.
Yep.
And
so
first initially
Lance
talked
is
to Lance.
in his last year. So he's 4 years
He's about to graduate.
older. Nope. 8 years older.
He's quite a bit older.
8. Well, because you have 4 years before you get to Zodiac and then 4 years at Zodiac or 3 years. So he's like 7 to 8 years older than Darius.
Yeah. He's about to graduate.
Mm-hmm.
They just played his last pit ball match, and he's really excited because after he graduates and
he's going to try to go to the league.
Yep, he's going to try out for the league.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big thing. Like that's a big component of a lot of this book.
He's like
he
really,
wants to be
really good, and he wants to be a
professional pit ball player. That was a huge thing throughout Ruthless Boys as well.
Leon was in love with Lance.
Love.
In love. And then freaking Gabriel's little like friendship with Lance.
They're best friends.
They're literally best friends. They're
best
allies.
friends.
They're adversarial allies or whatever the fuck it's called.
Aww.
Lance and
That makes
Gabriel.
sense. I don't think they ever said that, but
I think they did right after the Oreo incident.
I don't know. I can't remember.
Which
We'll have to look that up.
Later.
We'll have to look it up. But yeah, so you got a little bit of Lance in there, and you knew he wanted to be a big pitbull star, and he was against the guys in Ruthless Boys because Ruthless Boys is at a different academy, so they played each other in pitball. So you got to know a lot about Lance. And wanting.
And he helped them do dark magic stuff.
Yes,
with the book.
He was key with figuring out how to defeat the main villain in Ruthless Boys.
Yeah. So a little bit of backstory: dark magic is like
forbidden,
illegal. Like, if you get caught doing it, it comes up later.
Dark magic is forbidden at Zodiac Academy. That's why I hide it so well.
Yeah. He's been doing it for a while. Well, his family has done it.
His family is like the dark magic specialty, and they ally with Darius's family.
The Acruxes, yeah.
Yeah. The Ascruxes.
Yep. Ascruxes, yep.
That's what I'm going to call Lionel throughout this, is Lionel Ascrux.
That's perfectly fine. Lionel's a dick.
Lionel is Darius's dad. I don't know if we've said his name yet, but he's just...
But yes, Lance was pivotal in Ruthless Boys for doing the dark magic. And the Ruthless Boys at least kept his secret that he knows dark magic.
Yeah. And then Clara is Lance's older sister.
Mm-hmm.
She's what, like only a couple years? Yeah.
She graduated the year before him.
So she's around a year older than him. And we actually met her in Ruthless Boys. I saw her name when I was reading this, and I was like,
hold up.
Wait.
Is that same bitch?
Well, I didn't think she was a bitch. She just was doing nefarious things with a 40-some-year-old when she's, what, 22?
Yeah.
23?
Because they go to 18, 19, 20, 21. So they graduate at 22.
Yeah, so she was 23. And, like, she was caught in a nefarious situation with Lionel Ascrux, Darius's dad.
Yeah, and the person, Dante, who saw it, Lionel was like, yeah, you never saw.
He made them do
Orion
a star bond, or a star vow. Made Elise and Dante both do a star vow with him, saying that they'd never seen her there, or else that he would destroy their world.
You were like, and then in Ruthless Boys, you were like, okay, I don't really.
And she was calling Lionel daddy.
Daddy. That becomes a big part.
And Elise goes, he is not her daddy. I was like, oh my God.
So yes, Lance is playing pitball his last game. Clara shows up to the game,
and she's like,
him.
He notices that she's lost a lot of weight. Mm-hmm. She looks like she's been struggling a bit. And so they go to have a talk. Mm-hmm. After Lance feeds. Which he talks a bit about that. From random women.
He's just, because people like throw themselves at him because he's a professional star. Like pitball star. And so they're like, oh, Lance Orion, you can feed from me. So he just feeds from a bunch of like random girls. Just whoever is there and available.
Yes. Which I didn't really note anything about that because I don't know if that's gonna. I don't think that's gonna be relevant later. He just likes to get his fix.
Yeah. But she, at one point, they're talking. He says, like on page 18, how her expression was taut and her ebony eyes were distant. He knew in the depths of his soul that something was wrong.
Yeah.
And then she goes, Mom said, well, she just wanted me to remind you to watch out for Darius Acrux. That's all. And she kind of like brushes off his concern. He's like, something's wrong. And she's like, no, I'm just here to like remind you.
Mm-hmm.
To watch after Darius.
Is a big part.
Mm-hmm.
And then he notices that she's got cuts on her wrists. Mm-hmm. So like we said with dark magic, a big part of dark magic is blood magic. Mm-hmm. And she was doing magic in her car and completely ran out of power. That is huge. For a vampire.
Yeah.
Like
if they're out of power, then they can like go into like a crazy hunger state.
And like not great. Mm-hmm. So he was like essentially like, why haven't you healed yourself? Like, what is wrong? What are you doing? And she's like, I'm all out of power. I just did a few blood spells in the car before the game started.
And he's like, what?
First off, he was really freaked out because she didn't have a silencing bubble around them. Like, she had nothing. She just said that out loud, which they're vampires, so usually they can tell if there's people around, but like, oh my God. Well, just a few blood spells. Nothing crazy.
And like Lance has like tried to keep it hidden. He tries not to do it very often. He even says that he hasn't done blood magic or like dark magic in a year. He tries not to get like addicted to it.
Exactly, because with dark magic, it has like a pull, right? So you start it, it's very hard to stop or keep yourself in control, and there's shadows that can pull you in and just completely devour you.
He mentions that his dad had died from dark magic. Don't really know what happened yet.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No. That's one of my theories, is I don't think his dad died from magic.
What do you think he died from?
Lionel.
Interesting. That's Kenzie's theory.
I think his dad, like, he just mentions it way too much. And then there's a part, we'll get to it in a minute, but there's a part where Lionel says something about his dad, and it instantly, my ears were like,
what? Yeah, I know what part you're talking about. But yeah, I don't think he died from dark magic. I don't necessarily think he died from Lionel, but we'll see.
So another thing that Clara said, which hurt Lance really bad, was they were super close growing up, right? They were the only two. They were against their mom. Like, they didn't want to fall into the business. They wanted to be their own people. And Clara had always supported him. And this conversation, Clara was essentially like, try out for the league, but if you fail.
And then she says, all this pitball stuff is just dreams, Lance.
Yeah.
She like just keeps telling him that what he's been working towards for 4 years is just a dream and it's not going to happen, and he might as well just join the family like little shindig they have.
And then she says, embrace who you are. It feels better than you can ever imagine.
Interesting. So she's embraced
who she's meant to be. And she's like, so that to me was, she like loves it. Like, she's addicted.
She's a little addicted to it. So then after that,
we kind of jump into
Darius comes to talk to Lance. Lance says, hey, your family is up to something.
Well, no, this is the start of with Awakening Early, they have to spend a week, I think it is, at Zodiac Academy as like a trial, to kind of see how they're gonna fit in. And Lance and Darius, so Lance was told from a young age to watch after Darius.
Again, their families are right next to each other. Their estates are right next to each other. And the Orions always tend to align with the Acroxes and help them out. Kind of like the dark power to the Acroxes political.
So, of course, Lance was his sponsor. So Darius was with Lance, and he kind of confided into him of like, hey, something's fishy with Clara. Something's going on, and I really want to figure it out. Our families are planning something. And so they say she's up to something with your family tonight. I don't know what, but I know it's not good. And this is kind of where
Darius is like, well, let's find out.
So Darius does not like his dad. His dad's an ass crux, and hurts him. And
abusive.
It's just a really shitty dad. Obviously, we kind of talked about it earlier. We're like not proud of him, disappointed in him, that he's like super, super powerful. Another thing that I highlighted was Darius has already mentioned he thinks he's going to be bigger than his father, which is huge.
Because, okay, so what the Celestial heirs, eventually they're going to have to fight their parents for their seat on the Celestial Council. So it's just a group of 4 seats. They rule Solaria after the Savage King had died. So with Darius being bigger than his dad, he's probably going to
have the
advantage to fight his dad and win that council seat.
Yes. So this was Darius's kind of little
fuck you, dad,
but also intro to dark magic, because they went down and Lance performed blood magic, essentially just trying to find out what's going on.
Well, so right before that,
right
before that, they followed Clara.
Yep.
She shows up to like a barn area. She's talking. Oh, Lance rides Darius,
which is
there.
huge. Another thing. Totally forbidden. You know
Yeah.
this from Ruthless Boys, so that was like not really news to us.
Lionel
but
has like a bunch of random rules that the Dragon
no,
Guild.
it's not Lionel.
Lionel leads the Dragon Guild.
I think that was in place before him, though.
Well, the Dragon Guild was, but the like rules are very heavily enforced by Lionel.
Lionel enforces them.
Yeah.
They're not laws, but Lionel wants to make them laws, which is essentially like alienating dragons. They really can't do much with other people,
because they're more powerful. They're above everybody else.
They're the better species.
Yeah. One of which is you are not allowed to be ridden. Yeah. You're not a pack mule or whatever Lionel keeps saying. So Darius, being like a fuck you dad kind of mood, lets Lance ride him.
Yep.
As they're following Clara. They show up to a like barn, and then
well, they see her heading there, and she's using her vampire speed. So they land into a clearing, and then Lance throws Darius over his shoulder and runs. He is faster than Clara. So they make it there before them, and they put up some spells to conceal them and keep like nobody can hear them.
Yep.
So Clara gets there, and then you hear a voice.
I have it highlighted. So it's on page 31 in the Kindle version. One more minute and I'd have given up on you. My heart stilled at the sound of that voice, and my hand closed around Lance's wrist as he turned to me with wide eyes. You know I wouldn't miss this for anything, Clara breathed as she moved close to the ruined building. My father stepped out of the shadows.
Yeah. Creepy.
Yeah.
So creepy. Like he's meeting her in this abandoned barn right outside of Zodiac Academy.
And then he tilted his head to the side, allowing her access to his throat. So that's another thing with vampires. They normally don't like allow people
with dragons.
No, with vampires. People normally don't just allow themselves to get bit by a vampire. A lot of the time, a vampire has to like overpower them to like take their blood. You know full well, Clara has not overpowered Lionel Acrux.
Ascrux.
So he's just like willingly giving his blood.
It's also something that Lionel has driven into Darius's head. Like, you don't let other species feed on you. Whether that be sirens, like his best friend. They feed off of emotions. And Lionel has always been super mean to Darius about allowing his friend to feed off his happy emotions. And to just watch his dad
just go here.
Let a vampire that is not strong enough for him
and 20 years
willingly
younger
feed on him.
Lance's sister. It's weird.
Super weird.
And then my father's hands fell to her waist as her teeth pierced his flesh, and I didn't miss the faint smile which pulled at his lips as she fed on him. Lance stiffened beside me, clearly as shocked as I was. Then perhaps you'd be willing to do me a favor, of course. Another page later, Clara, favor, of course, Clara breathed. And then he like pulls her into the barn. And they can't get in there because it's sealed with Lionel's magic.
So we knew Clara before this, or like in between this, because we actually were introduced to her in Ruthless Boys, kind of like I talked about earlier, where she was sleeping with Lionel. So we know that something is going on between them. Lance and Darius do not. This is kind of like them figuring out that something is going on there and being like, what the hell is going on?
Why is your dad hanging out with my sister?
That's only a year older than me.
And letting her feed from him. Yeah.
So they disappear into like a basement in the barn that's covered in Lionel's magic.
They can't get through it.
Something key to point out here is he let Clara feed on him and then said, will you do me a favor? When vampires feed on powerful beings, they get a little drunk. Like they're a little power drunk. Yeah. And for someone as powerful as Lionel, for Clara to be feeding on him, she's not as powerful. She's not even as powerful as Lance. Completely intoxicating. So it was like a power move on his part. Of,
like, here, now can I have something?
Yeah.
Will
you do something for me? Like, of course. One, they're sleeping together. Two,
you just let her feed on you.
Yeah. She's drunk on his blood. And then you get the start of a little bit of dark magic for Darius. Lance takes him down into his cave, and I love their little back and forth. Like
their little banter.
It's so
as
good.
Best friends.
Where I didn't. do it.
Do you
But
often take
there
14-year-old
you go.
boys to
Yes, yes, yes,
secluded
yes.
places? Darius jokes, and I started to laugh. Only the hot ones.
Lucky me. So yeah, he took him down into his cave where he usually does like his dark magic, blood magic. And he did all of the elements. He brought powerful bones. So bones hold power. So there are bones from 4 different people that had held each of the elements.
Yeah.
And took them down into the cave, and he slit his wrist. And dripped blood on them and kind of went into a little bit of a trance. He got the dark magic inside him. And this is kind of the first time that we have, like, Elise had it a little bit at the end, but, like, they didn't explain this part of it, of, like.
Of the dark magic and the pole
and the drunk feeling.
Shadows.
Similar to when vampires take blood, they just get an immense, like, happiness feeling.
Of just, like, so much power.
Yes, and it's comforting, which explains why it could have a pull, and some people can get lost in that.
Yeah.
But he does it, and he's essentially just, like,
trying to ask, like, about Clara.
What's going on with my sister? And it had said her fate was undecided.
Yeah. So then he asks Darius. Well, he doesn't ask Darius for help. He kind of alludes to it, and Darius is like, "Well, I'm gonna help." Like,
which the big thing about this is if Darius gets caught, no throne for him. Takes away his chances.
He is fucked. Even though he is a celestial heir, if you get caught with dark magic, you can go to Darkmoor, which is like their big prison.
Yep. If he's caught using blood magic, he'll lose his claim to the throne.
Yeah.
Which is big. Darius is like, okay, let's do it.
Let's fuck over my dad.
So we see him doing dark magic for the first time.
I highlighted the little vision thing that he got.
Yep. The vision is huge.
So it says it's on page 43. It says the shadowy realm I appeared to be standing in seemed to twist, and I moved with it. The whole image distorted until I wasn't in darkness at all, but standing before a flame so bright and so deeply crimson that it could only be dragonfire. A fallen star shone at the heart of it, glittering and sparking with flashes of silver, purple, blue, and violet. It crumbled to dust beneath the intensity of the fire, and as the vision shifted, an enormous green dragon, which we know Lionel is green, was revealed at the source of the flames. I felt rather than saw Darius react that this was his father, but there was nothing strange about the dragon shifter creating stardust. A whisper rushed over us and burrowed into my bones. Death is coming.
So this is page 63 in the hard copy. And then the big part about that is suddenly the fire turned to blood. The world ran red, and the coppery scent of my favorite taste hit my senses. My fangs tingled, and the urge to drink devoured me from the inside out. Death is coming. Blood. And then they were snapped out of it.
Yeah.
So something bad is coming. That was like a vision in the future.
Yeah.
That both Lance and Darius had at the same time. So they both felt it. And then after that,
they have a feast for their awakened powers. So all the heirs, Darius, Lance, are all going to the Acrex's Manor to have a feast. At this point, we're also introduced to this girl. She is called Mildred.
Hang on. Before that. So something about Lionel that just frustrates me is his, like, I'm the most powerful being and my kids can't have it easy. You don't make it easy for your kids, one. And he literally says, he asks Darius if he's had to endure challenges to his power yet.
Oh, yeah.
He just awakened. Like, calm the hell down. And Darius is like, not yet, blah, 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 blah. And he goes, so you're getting an easy ride of it. I always feared you'd grow lazy in your position. It won't do for you to become overconfident without anyone to challenge your mettle. What? Leave him alone.
Yeah, he's 14. He's been hanging out at an academy with his best friend.
Like, you're the lazy one fucking a 22-year-old. Excuse me?
And then another one later where him and Lance are close. They, like, hug each other or something. It's right before the feast. Lionel's like, Father didn't bother to hide the sneer at our display of affection for each other. So he does not like the affection between the different heirs and Lance.
He doesn't like affection at all for his kid. Like, hey, you need to be tough. You need to be challenged. No love.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can't get close to anyone. You're better than everybody.
And then, so at the dinner table, it's Lionel, Darius's mom, Lance, Darius, and Lance's family. And there are 2 chairs that are open. And Darius is like, okay, what the fuck's going on? And Lionel's like, we have a surprise for you. And in walks Lionel's cousin with his daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I have ever giggled so hard reading through this part of it. Because
About
Darius,
Mildred.
yes. So Darius looked at her, and the way
She smiled widely, her bottom teeth protruding much further than her top set. Her skin was blotchy and red, and her muddy brown eyes were not the same size as each other. Looking upon her face had almost shocked me into choking to death.
and like, okay, that's mean, but like, it was really funny. She's not attractive
at all.
And then his father says, "We thought we should make this a double celebration." My stomach dropped. I was like, oh no, I know exactly what's gonna happen
immediately.
Like,
well, there you go, Darius. Your powers are awakened, and you're betrothed. Look at that.
Yeah, because Mildred is a dragon. So that is something big with the dragon lines. Is you have to be pure, you have to be a dragon. Like, there's, they date their lines back.
Dragons.
And so
a bunch of like inbreeding
thing with Darius's generation is there are very few female dragons. And Mildred came out of a dragon, and his father now expects him to marry her.
Mm-hmm.
And
his second cousin or first cousin.
Second cousin.
Yeah.
But still, too close.
Gross.
And she is inbred.
Yeah, she is. You can tell because she is not attractive.
And it was no secret that he was desperate for his dragon form. Oh. This is about Xavier. Mm-hmm. So this is also where you go into, like, he goes into a little bit about talking about his
Mildred,
brother.
how old is she? And she's like, well, I'm 15, but I do everything late. I even just got my period, and all the other heirs laugh. And then Xavier is like, oh, fuck, I'm 13 and still haven't come out as a dragon yet.
Which, that kind of gave you a little bit of hope of maybe he's just a late bloomer.
Maybe.
I don't think he's going to be a dragon, but maybe he's a late bloomer. Like, she came out at 15.
Darius just came out so early, and I don't think Xavier's going to be a late bloomer.
I also don't think, but I think Xavier's going to be really powerful.
That's why I highlighted that, well, maybe your brother will have 3 elements.
I think Xavier's going to be really powerful in a different order. Anyway. But he kind of goes through, if Xavier didn't end up emerging as a dragon, I hated to think what father would do about it. In his mind, every other order was lesser. Our bloodline was as pure as possible with dragons reaching back on both sides, but there were always recessive genes. The odd harpy or cyclops.
Just like, and sometimes it's like not even like a recessive gene. It's like something like crazy far back.
Yeah.
Just legit pops out of nowhere.
But then his father finally says, "You're gonna marry her," and Darius flips his shit. He's like, "What the fuck?" His father just keeps talking about Mildred's lineage is undisputed. And Darius is like, "She's my cousin," and his father goes, "Second cousin." And he goes, "I was pushing him and I knew it. But how the hell did he expect me to just sit here while he married me off to this walking dog turd beside me?" I laughed. I ashamedly laughed a lot at that line. And then Darius finally goes, "I'm 14. Like, his dad's trying to marry him off at 14 years old.
At the end of it, his dad is pretty much just like, you're going to do what is expected of you.
Yeah.
Like, you're my heir. You're going to do what I tell you to.
And then he left. So his mom was like trying to be optimistic. Like, perhaps another option will present itself before you're wed. But like, she wasn't even helping him. Like,
yeah, she's
just going along with it because she gets that platinum credit card money. And then he asked Mildred, he said, "What do you think of this madness?" And she said, "I would be honored to be the wife of an heir to the Celestial Council."
Gross.
She wants power.
Yeah, power hungry.
Like, you're ugly and power hungry. Like, what are you thinking?
She's like, I'm a dragon. I'm an only female dragon. Like,
so Darius leaves. He gets in a really big fight with his dad.
Ryan
and
Lance
goes after him. To kind of make him feel better. And this is where, like, it makes me like, their relationship is just so cute. And where is it? Where does he say it? Oh, okay. So he's kind of talking to him about what his dad said, and he's like, "You don't have to do that." And I think that this is also foreshadowing. Um, he cracked too, and I knocked my shoulder into his. Go to Zodiac and work your ass off. Get bigger and stronger than that jerk. And then he says, Darius says, I'll go along with his bullshit engagement for now, but I'm not marrying her. Lance says, you won't. But just in case you do, I'm not available as a godfather to your goblin kids. Like, their relationship is just adorable.
It's just so cute.
And, like, Lance is trying to lift him up and try to make him, like, trying to help him feel better after that absolute shit show of a dinner.
Yeah, he's like, worst case scenario, you won't marry her till after Zodiac. You can get bigger, you can get stronger, you can challenge your dad for the
throne, and then you
throne. Yeah.
don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
And then Clara comes to find him, pulls him into the kitchen, and she's like acting weird, and he's like, this is finally saying, like, this is my sister, like, I miss my sister.
She's saying, I'm sorry for like a lot of things, and he's like, they're just like talking openly for the first time since like in a while, since she left Zodiac Academy. And then he like pretty much asks her like what's been happening, and she says, you'll find out tonight.
Dun dun dun. Dun dun dun. And then Lionel comes into the room and asks Claire to leave, and she does immediately. And then he like kind of tells Lance what to do, of like, he's going to be Darius's
gonna watch out for him,
guard.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I'll watch out for him like when I'm around, because he wants to go to the league. And Lionel says, I'm a patient man, Lance, liar, but I have no time for idle dreams and wishy-washy ambitions. Like my sons, your destiny has already been laid out for you. You will take on the official role as Darius's guardian, and I will compensate you handsomely for it. You can't say fairer than that. And they get into a fight.
Yeah. Lance
actually catches him off guard and flings him with his air power, but he got him stuck in his dragon rings, and Lance cannot get out of them. And he like starts pulling him into a basement and throws him into a little like cupboard
and shuts the door.
And he's like trying to get out of it, and then they come back with Darius, and he throws Darius in there too, and they like fall down some stairs, and his dad pushes him in
beating Darius.
And then Lionel starts to beat the crap out of Darius. And of course, like, it's hurting Lance. They're friends. To just watch his friend get the shit beat out of him by his dad,
and he
like,
can't do anything. He's legit powerless. He's just,
well, Darius also just doesn't fight him at all.
Which you kind of see that like maybe this has happened probably a bunch of times before, so he no longer fights it. He's just taking it.
He knows better. Yeah. And he kind of says it a little bit later. But he forces them to lock arms and put their heads together and does a little chant that forces Lance into being Darius's guardian, which means he will not be able to leave Darius at all.
So yeah, a little bit with the guardian bond. You have to be close to each other so often. The bond kind of like forces you to like up that connection to each other. So it's a lot of like touchy feely. The guardian can feel the other person's pain.
Yep.
Their ward's pain. And they like have to like protect them at all costs.
And Lionel says, your life is pledged to his. Where he goes, you go. End of story.
Yeah, so he's like, you are to be bound forever. Lionel says calmly, Lance Orion, you will guard my son at the detriment of your own life. Nothing will ever be more important to you than that. And then they both get marks in the crook of their right elbows. So Lance gets Darius's star sign. Darius gets Lance's star sign.
Yeah. And Darius, we move into chapter 7.
Well, I was gonna read this real quick.
Okay.
So it says, it's just another like little quick blurb about kind of like the guardianship. So it says, Lance is your guardian from here on out until one of you takes your final breath. Get used to each other because your lives are not intertwined. Your life is pledged to his. Where he goes, you go. End of story. So it's a bond forever. They cannot get rid of it until one of them dies.
And then we move into chapter 7, which is Darius's POV. And he says, I hadn't fought back when he'd started pounding on me. I never did. I'd always thought that it would only make matters worse. Anyway, tells you right there he does this often. And then usually his mom comes to heal him, but Lance is like, I have to heal you.
Like, seeing you like this hurts me.
My brain is fuzzy. Like, I can't do anything until I make sure you're healed. But before that, Clara is in there. She said, "I'm so sorry, Lance. I thought if I took on the role Mom needed, then she might let you live your life away from this. I didn't want this to happen." That right there kind of crushed my heart a little bit because, like,
she did what she
you're
did
like,
to try to protect him.
Before this, you're just thinking that Clara did it for the power. It wasn't like that. She was trying to protect him. And then she leaves, and then that's when
this is where he says, "I didn't want this to happen." Lance stared at his sister in horror. "What have they done to you?" he gasped. She pushed the sleeve of her dress back and revealed an Aries mark on her own arm. "I am bound to Lionel." So this is where you find out that Clara is the guardian of Lionel, which kind of explains the little touchy-feely things and why Lionel let her feed from him. Because that's his guardian. She would literally put herself in between him and death. And so to have her power
Which is weird. Like, why? And he's sleeping with her. Weird. Yeah, I forgot about that. I have it marked down here. And she says, "It's not all bad. He cares about me."
That's the Bond talking.
Yep. And then Clara says, Lance, like, spits at her. He lets you feed on him because they saw it. And she says, "If you feed on someone with that much power, it's like," which is essentially just telling you how fuzzy her brain gets after she feeds on him. And then Darius says, "Don't go getting any ideas. Not going to let you suck on me too, blah, 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 blah." And then he looks at Lance and said, "That goes for you too. I've lost enough blood tonight without donating any." And then Clara
ends up leaving.
And then the whole "I have to heal you." The sight of his distress filled me with sadness, way beyond the normal amount of care I'd usually have for someone. Oh, shit. Lance heals him. And then Lance is completely drained. He was using magic to fight off Lionel. Completely has nothing left in him after healing Darius. And Darius
is like, "Well, let me help you replenish your magic."
Yep. He says, "The sight of his distress filled me with sadness, way beyond the normal amount of care I'd usually have for someone in his position." So the bond is a bond. It is not just, like, one-sided. It's not just
they both care for each other.
He has to be the guardian. It's Darius is also the one being guarded and cares for his guardian. And so I feel like that was, like, really big of Darius was like, "No, leave me alone. You're not feeding off of me." And then he saw how much distress Lance was in.
And he's like,
and his body was like, "Oh, I should help him." And then Lance drank from him, and they talked more about kind of like
shit he breathed. You taste like, yeah, that felt a little too good to be normal.
The memory of my father feeding Clara played on my mind, and I couldn't help but think of the way they'd almost been caressing each other. "Yeah, your blood is like my own goddamn brand of heroin," Lance said, his dark eyes alight with the power I'd just given him.
I'm thinking we should avoid doing that again.
And it's like, that's where
there's
you
a pang
really
of longing between them. Like the bond is just like trying to draw them close together.
So they kick all the guests out, and then Father beckoned us like we were a pair of dogs and headed back through the house towards the dining hall. They got there, and then the cousin says, "We're ready to go when you are, Commander," because that's his title, because he's the leader of the dragon clans. And then they all went out, and they got some stardust, and they transported into a field. And they started chanting. And Lance immediately, because he's done dark magic before, he understands a little bit about what they're doing, was like, "Oh my God, we have to stop this." And of course, Lionel was right there, put them on their knees, bound them in magic so that they couldn't move or interfere, but they could still speak.
At this point, so Lance, as soon as Lionel pushes them to their knees, Lance is like, "You don't have to do this, like, whatever ritual you're going to do, whatever." And Lionel says, "Your father wasn't strong enough to harness the shadows. He was a disappointment and a fool. We will not make the same mistake twice. Father strode away from us without another word, and we were left there, kneeling in the dirt and forced to observe this twisted ritual."
Your father wasn't strong enough to harness the shadows.
Yeah.
That just clicked to me from reading the end. Oh my god.
And yeah. So we're gonna get into what the ritual is, but as of right now, we just know that they're going to do something shady with
He was a
shadows.
disappointment and a fool, meaning he lived through the shit.
Will not make the same mistake twice.
We will not make the same mistake twice.
Okay, so then they're doing the ritual. They see there's a bunch of chanting. A meteor falls from the sky. Lionel,
Meteor falls from the sky. Remember
Just like
that
the
little
vision.
vision that we were talking about?
Lionel turns into his green dragon form. He melts the meteor down to just stardust. But it is the solstice or something right now.
Yep.
And he makes a comment, and he says, "Stardust created on the lunar eclipse takes the traveler to only one place," because stardust is made normally, and that's how people travel around Solaria. But there's something different about the stardust that they're making on the lunar eclipse. And then Lionel says, "Tonight will be the first fate to ever enter the shadow realm. Are you insane?" Darius demands. Lionel ignores him, and then it goes into like kind of like what the shadow realm is. So it says the shadow realm was the darkest mirror world in existence. So again, Solaria is kind of like a mirror world to the human world, and then there's another mirror called the shadow realm. Nothing good came from there, but there was one rumor that had yet to be confirmed, that the shadow realm was home to the elusive fifth element, the element of shadows. So
Your father,
what is
hang
Lionel
on.
trying to do with the shadow realm in shadows?
Your father wasn't strong enough to harness the shadows.
Mm-hmm.
Did he die from that fifth element?
You'll see. You'll see.
Did he die from the fifth element, guys?
You'll see.
This is just,
You'll see
let me
theories.
wonder.
It's okay.
That
like
did
all the
not click
theories.
to me
That
until
quote.
I went back and looked at that again. Like, I just thought he was like shitting on his dad.
Yeah, your
'Cause
dad's not
I do, like I said before, I don't think that his dad died from
dark magic.
dark magic. I think his dad died from something else. And
then Lionel says, "It's time."
it's time, Clara.
Yep. And time for what? Lance screams. He's begging her not to go, not to help him. She turns to him and she says, "I want this."
She says, "It's not for him, Lance. I want this." Sad.
So she goes down to the base of the meteor.
Well, he says, "Please stop." I breathed, emotions scrapping at my heart. This wasn't really her. Dark magic had corrupted her, made her crave power to the detriment of herself, and I knew my mom and Lionel were to blame. They'd manipulated her, bribed her with dragon blood, and now she was so deep in this shit she couldn't see her way out.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yes, she went into the crater,
She
slit her wrists.
in the ashes.
Yeah.
In the stardust.
Um,
And it starts coiling around. Almost like a serpent is what he calls it. Her eyes rolled back into her head, and the stardust slithered further up her arms. The other people around them are chanting. The stardust creeps up over her shoulders, then up her throat and around her head.
It wrapped around Clara's neck, sliding high, covering her mouth, closing in on her nose. And then,
all of a sudden, Lance's mother
yells Lionel's name, and then he says, "Calm, Stella. Your daughter is pure. She will be fine."
Yeah. What the fuck?
What does that mean? And then the dust enveloped my sister entirely, folding her into the depths of the surging mound.
And then it just becomes like a pillar of just growing.
Yep. The dust rose higher and higher toward the lunar eclipse, a pillar of twisting, writhing darkness. As it spiraled above our heads and its shadow fell over me, a deep chasm of fear opened up in my chest. Something's wrong. With a sound like falling rain, the tower collapsed, pouring down toward the center of the pit in a cascade of shimmering grains. The moment it met the ground, the dark substance turned to blood. It exploded against the base of the crater, showering up the sides of it. So much blood, it was all I could see. A red pool oozing and swirling. And then his mother screamed.
Yeah.
And then she's gone.
She's not in the center of the thing anymore. It's just blood.
Gone. Mom's hands were on me, hugging me, pawing at my shirt, but I couldn't move. I couldn't tear my eyes from that crater swimming with the remains of my sister. And then his mom says, it was her choice. She wanted this.
She didn't want to die.
And then Lionel says, we failed. And then Darius says, how can that be all you care about? And then he says, Clara is dead. My sister is gone. I would never let her lay a hand on me again, talking about his mom. She and Lionel had done this, and I would never forgive it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it kind of pushed towards a couple months later.
Mm-hmm.
Him and Darius are living in an apartment.
Yep.
I don't know if they're living together, but Darius is there.
Orion is in Lance is in an apartment. Yeah.
And then Darius is trying to probe him about the league. He didn't end up trying out. He was too destroyed.
And then he gives him a letter.
Yeah, and they want him to start teaching at Zodiac Academy.
Mm-hmm.
So we already know that this happened
close to Darius,
from Ruthless Boys. We don't know why Lance was so depressed.
Mm-hmm.
That was news from this. But we know that he started teaching and
got super depressed.
Was the coach
himself,
also of the pitball team at Zodiac Academy. Mm-hmm. And then he was essentially like, what if this is my father's doing? And he's like, so they do a little bit of back and forth. Mm-hmm. He's like, not that you wouldn't make a great professor. And then Lance says, I'm not just a pretty face. I got straight A's across the board in my finals. And then Darius says, oh yeah, I forgot you're a secret geek. But they were essentially like, are we just going to let my father
get his
use you as a puppet?
Yeah. And
he said, no, I think we should play him at his own game. He wants me to watch out for you. Fine. I'll take this job and teach you everything I know in lessons and out. And
Darius is like, dark magic?
A note of excitement in his tone. You can be more powerful than even your father, Darius. Darius says, you want revenge? He says yes and no. Clara made her choice, but it was Lionel's blood that sealed the deal. I can do something to get back at him, and so can you. I want to see you rise to be the most powerful heir of them all and crush your father beneath your heel. And then Darius says, do you really think I can? Mm-hmm. He says, yes, I'll help you, and nothing will ever stand in our way.
So that is the origin of
an
kind
academy of like, bully.
So that's like the background of like what Darius and Lance are going to be working towards when we start book 1. So Lance will be a professor, and the Celestial Heirs in book 1
coming into the school.
They're second years.
Oh, I didn't know they were second years.
Mm-hmm. You're buff.
But yes. So that's where we end this book. Couple things that I'm looking for moving forward. 1, the bond. Mm-hmm. I really want to know the extent of their bond. 2, he says we failed. Lance's dad had something to do with the first time it happened. I think that they had done this before, and something with the dad happened. I don't think his dad died from dark magic.
What do you think? So theories. What do you think Lionel's trying to do with that shadow realm? What do you think he was trying to have Clara do?
I don't know. Obviously they talked about the 5th element. Mm-hmm. Like that has something to do with it, like to be able to harness that 5th element.
Yeah, that's what I think is he wants to be able to use an extra element to try to get like a 1-up on
everybody else. Which whole point of the 4 people is they have to be evenly matched, because if one can just take over the other, there you get another king. Mm-hmm. or queen. Yeah. Or a queen. Queens. Yeah. So that's definitely going to be something big. Obviously, they're going to be trying to get into the shadow realm and harness that shadow element. Mm-hmm. Do we have anybody yet that we know of that's wielded 4 elements aside from the Savage King?
The Savage King didn't have 4.
How many did he have? Was it 3?
2 or 3. He didn't have a lot. He was I don't think we know about his order yet. But
okay. But yeah. So guys, that was Zodiac Academy, Origins of an Academy Bully. Mm-hmm. We are going to be, the next podcast will be 150 pages rounded up. Let me actually. Okay. So Kindle chapter 11 is where we're going. It's page 153 in my Bookish Box version, and then it's
Darcy chapter,
page
191 in my
191 in KU. So if you want to keep up with us, that would be awesome. Let us know what you think. Let us know of the theories. Let us know your theories. And we'll be going over the first 153 pages of book 1. You'll see this come out Sunday next week. So yeah, keep up with us. Tell us what you think. If you're scared of getting into the series, don't be.
We're going to baby step through it.
We're going to baby step through it. Also, if you have time in between, I really recommend reading Ruthless Boys. If you haven't already, it just gives such key things to the story and makes you be a little bit more invested in the characters.
Backstory and jokes. And so when you meet the characters later on,
it just makes it that much better.
Yeah.
So yeah, guys, let us know what you think. If you're here, you want to follow along with us, hit the subscribe button so that you can see the videos as they come out. And we're so excited to go on this journey with you. And welcome to our Zodiac Sundays and our Year of the Zodiac. Yeah. So we'll see you guys next time. Thanks, guys. Bye.